So for my level recreation assignment, I chose Ash Lake from Dark Souls 1. This is the entrance to the level. In here, there would be a path to go into this tree. This is where the previous area is called the Great Hollow, which takes place in this giant tree. And then this is a path that is kind of connected to the tree that leads you down to the beach. And then behind you will be the one of two bonfires slash checkpoints in the level. Creating this level was very interesting because there wasn't a ton of blocking out in the traditional way. It was almost all sculpting with the landscape tool, which I have done before, but not to this extent. I did have some challenges, but I feel like I'm significantly better using this tool now. And over here is a log. In the original game, there would be an item in the log, and it leads you down here I guess the coast of this tiny beach island. To get back up, it's actually too steep. You have to walk around until the dunes get shallower, or you can actually walk back up this log. The actual this coast here is actually interesting. I made it with two different planes. The top one is a transparent blue, and the bottom one is solid blue. Um, it's because in the Dark Souls level, there is like shallow water you can walk in, but at some point it gets too deep and then you just fall off and die. This was actually kind of complicated to figure out because it's very easy to see the parts that are above water, but in game, which is what I used for reference, I walked around in game a lot to like figure out the scale and things. It is kind of hard to tell where this drop off is, so it did take me quite some time to figure that out for all points in the level. But yes, the first thing I did was create the landscape and then sculpt it. I wanted to get the landscape like as almost as perfect as possible right off the bat, just because I didn't want to deal with it later, which I did do mostly successfully. There was a couple things I changed, like smoothing some hills out, but then I started blocking out these big trees, and and after I did that, I added the details, like I added the vines, like these vines here, and like made their shapes more accurate to how they are in game. Like these two big ones have like a kind of a spiral effect. Another thing is that almost everything in this level I created using the modeling tools in Unreal Engine. Like all of these were cylinders that I modified, and this one was also a cylinder that I kept extruding at different angles to get this specific shape. And I also was like cutting out those pieces to give it that jagged shape. And then there's also a few tunnels in these trees. To create those, I created the shape of a tunnel. Like I created a 3D object of the shape of that tunnel, and then I Boolean subtracted it from this giant tree. And after I did the block out of this tree, I added all the entrances, which there are three. This is This is one of them. You go up like this big vine branch thing, and it leads you into an entrance into the center. And there's some giant mushrooms growing on the wall, and then there's a ramp to go down there. And then there's actually a secret entrance, which is how you get the item in this tree. You have to drop down here, and then there's another path you walk up, and it leads you right here. And then the third path is here, and it leads you to the ground level, which is right here. Something I like a lot about Ash Lake is that it's not focused on combat a lot. It's mostly like the point of this level is just kind of like look really nice and like have a good vibe and aesthetic. And within the game, it serves as like an important story moment, um, in a way, because this level is like the last remaining area in like the world of Dark Souls before I guess like pretty much all the events of Dark Souls actually took place. So it's very surreal, and completely different from every other level in the game and the rest and from any other level in the series, to be honest. So that's why I like it so much, and that's why I chose it. I just really like, um, even though there's not a lot to do, the actual like feeling the player gets from going through this area is something I like a lot, and I wanted to recreate and then also add on to with my alteration. Towards the end of the level, you walk into this big tree with also has some more vines, and it has some smaller vines in here, which I made with the foliage tool because I didn't want to place all of them individually, and it gave it a more organic and randomized feel, like it has in the actual level. And then over here is the second bonfire slash checkpoint, and on this perch right here would be a big dragon that you can interact with to join a covenant that grants you items. This right here is, I believe, the only thing I modeled in Maya, just because I wasn't sure how to do this quickly in the modeling tools in Unreal Engine. But yeah, for the most part, that's pretty much everything for the original level. Now on to the alteration. All right, so this is the altered version of my level. It's the same up until this point when you're about to walk into this giant tree. The first thing that's different is that instead of walking into the tree, you see a giant log sticking out of it, and invites the player to go inside. And once you walk in, you realize that it's very, very deep, and you see an orange light, which contrasts from the blue sky, like the blue water and the blue fog from um, the other parts of the level. Then the player sees their next checkpoint, this bonfire, and then the reveal of a giant dragon skull in the lava. Um, I wanted to stay, I wanted to like keep with the theme of Ash Lake. Like I didn't want to create like a really like a combat zone or like something that's like very different from what Ash Lake represents, which I talked about earlier. Like it just being like its aesthetic and like its story meaning. So I wanted to, like another. I wanted my alteration to fit that vibe, but also do something very different, which I think I succeeded in. Because I really like like using the complementary colors. Um, then also like having the subversion of, instead of having like the giant dragon on the pedestal, I have a giant dragon skull like sinking in lava. It's actually, even though like the dragon's dead in this version instead of being alive, in terms of like the overall story, it doesn't change anything at all. Because like this world is supposed to be like hidden away from the player, like it's very hard to get to. And it's kind of exists in like its own world. Like this is a representation of like the world look what the world looked like before the events of Dark Souls happened. So even though like there being one dragon remaining seems like a significant thing, whether that dragon is alive or dead doesn't actually change anything in the story. Like it just kind of shows how like time passes on like no matter what, and that's kind of like the core theme of Dark Souls. And so that's kind of why I chose to do what I did thematically. As for how I made this section, that log was just log was just like one of the I just reused one of the other logs on or like one of the other like trees from the overworld, and then this section down here, the floor is landscape, but it's actually not the same landscape as the landscape up there. I made a new landscape, but just like placed it deep underground and in this area. And then the roof is a dome. And then yeah, the lava is a plane, and then these are the lava pillars are cylinders with the bottoms of them widened to look like floating lava. Oh, also I created the dragon with the modeling tools in Unreal Engine, which I am very proud of because usually I would go to Maya for something like this, but I was confident I could get it done with the modeling tools. And yeah, that's pretty much it.